Okay, since the recording just got started, I'm welcoming you all to share what stood out for you from the first 3 chapters as learnings. We could take quick turns. Anybody who feels like sharing, no pressure. You could also share on the chat box if you're more comfortable. I will read it out. Anybody feeling brave, or you want me to start?
I'm going to confess, this is my first book club. So
Okay.
I have no idea how book club runs.
It'll run the way we want it to run, right? Because it's our space. We're not following any preset format. Great, I will share what stood out to me. Do you think that'll help everyone ease into this space? Okay, so I think the first 3 chapters is really, for me, what stood out was the difference between the transactional and the transformational coaching. And I think it really helped me remember a lot of concepts that I'd learned in my coach training. A lot of these drama triangles, I mean, the names may be different, but the concepts, like you remember that situation, engagement concept, the drama triangle. I learned it as drama triangles when I was doing ontological coach training. So I think from the first 3 chapters, what stood out to me was that the training that I've had has been very valuable, and I should revisit and practice these tools that I have access to and we have now because it's part of the book. And the other thing that stood out to me was this uh, multiple layers of our true self and the surrounding egos and how there are layers. And it reminds me of the metaphor that we are like onions, and layers keeps getting peeled to reveal the ourselves within. So yeah, those were the key highlights for me. The difference, the relationship between ego and the and ourselves, and how it's interrelated, and how a lot of times we operate out of our ego and hence feel very inauthentic in our experiences. So yeah, so a lot of the terminology is like ways of being. I recognize that some people who've been new to this kind of words might find it new, because I think this was the terminology that ontology used a lot. Our ways of being, how we're showing up, how we're experiencing. So I could see a lot of that, peppered in the first three chapters. I also love the questions that were part of the chapters. Like there was these questions around what's the opportunity here, what wants to happen, and you would notice that these questions other peer coaches asking you and you answering them, and these questions when you ask your clients, they don't work. I noticed that. What wants to happen? I tried asking one of my clients and no response. They're like, can you repeat the question? So the difference there is, how to adapt this to coaching is another step, which is, I think, we can co-create while we're discussing. So yeah, I'll pause here and see if anybody has any thoughts, they want to add something.
Yeah, I'd like to go, Shivani. Thanks so much. For me, what stood out was, what I learned for myself is that at the beginning of the chapter, the first chapter.
We can't hear you, Rahul. Can't hear you.
What? Now? Now?
I was able to hear you earlier as well.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Maybe.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Am I audible now?
To me, you are.
Yeah, I can hear you as well.
Everyone can hear me or not?
We can.
All right. Great. So yeah, the first chapter, he speaks about awakening and awareness, the relation between both, and how there is the shift from one consciousness to the other, and the facilitation as such, where it comes to understanding our own shift and our own transformation. Only then how we can help others also too in their journey of transformation. So unless we have experienced that transformation, that process, that journey, it's not going to be very effective when we impart, or not impart as such, help others in that same journey, go through that same journey. That was one, and also in the second chapter, before he explains what transformation coaching is, there are a few, in a nutshell, he had mentioned a few points over there. How to do things differently. So that was issue focused, result driven, action focused, action oriented, and at the surface level. Uh, and then when you start reading more about transformation coaching, I came to understand from the surface level how deep rooted it is. And like you rightly said, Shivani, like if you ask a person to choose what happens in the session, they're going to be a bit blank. Whereas like peer coaching, yes, it's obvious that, one of the markers, so we are all very aware of that. Our third chapter was kind of a rush for me, so I couldn't do much over there, but the 4 levels was also very interesting. The drama, the situation, the choice, and opportunity. It was something I had read about earlier, but not so much in depth. I had to actually write it down, draw my own kind of easier things for me to understand. So yeah. So overall, the first 3 chapters, and one more thing, the difference between the transaction and the transformational, and the journey between the both. I somehow felt that, it's like a pendulum clock for me. So it's in the middle, and then you have a transaction on the left side, and then you go to the transformational. And then you want to be there once you realize the learning from the transformational aspect as an individual. Yep. So that's from mine. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing, Rahul.
I can go next if no one,
I
or sure, please go ahead, Maimun.
No, as you guys were going through that, then what came up for me as I was reading about the transactional and transformational is the iceberg. Iceberg is my go-to metaphor. And recently I had a client, and she wanted to go very transactional, and I could spot it immediately. Then I was like, okay. And so I asked her to clarify. And at the end of the session, she was able to go transformational. And she cried at the end of the session. And she was like, and the next session, she said, I cried for 3 days after our session. And I was like, wow, that's so powerful, because I think I was able to spot it, and I didn't follow her story. I got very curious about her, because I think having had that reading reminded me back about the iceberg model. So that was quite powerful, I thought. And I liked the way I think about transformational is why do we do what we do? So it kind of allows me to go and anchor when I start asking the question to my clients. And I like on the 3rd chapter, he said, to be more intentional in our growth. We change constantly. How do I grow consciously into whom I desire to be? I love that quote. I don't know where I got it, but it's written somewhere in my notes. What is your mental image of who you are? So, wow, that's so powerful, isn't it? So that's a question that I could ask my client. So if you could think back, I asked her this question and said, okay, as you think back, who do you think you are as a professional? So couldn't tell her what's your mental image of who you are. So you have to make it a little bit to a layperson term. So that I caught that from there. So that was I thought was, okay, how do I turn that around? And we are perfectly perfect functionality of dysfunction. So I always tell them, we are perfectly imperfect human being. So that is the, I think, perfect functionality of dysfunction. Yeah, because we are all perfectly imperfect human beings. So be kind to ourselves. And lastly, I love that this quote. Transformation is a journey to strip all that is not you, to lift the veil of illusion so that you may awaken into a new dimension of selfhood. So isn't that powerful? That's where I am.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much for making notes and picking out these nuggets from the entire chapters.
That's how
Powerful.
I remember notes.
So if we are, we don't want to share in terms of what we're learning, you could also talk about.
Can I share?
Yeah.
So I like the part. I'll not go through one, second, third, because already it's been done. I like the part. Okay, so just a little context. I really feel your approach, Maimun, was very good. That somebody was transactional, but you kept asking them so that you could go deeper. Because I think the struggle that we'll all face is that a lot of our clients may come transactional to us. But we need to persist and ensure that we keep going deeper and deeper. And I think I really like that part where where he says that when we transform, we may lose the identity that we have been so used to for so many years, and maybe that's the reason the client cried or whatever. And how then, as coaches, do we hold that space? So, we've already worked on the drama, we've already worked on the situation. Let's say we've already, assessed or worked with the client on how, where you would like to be, how you would like to show up, all of that. We've already worked on that. Now, the client has gone deeper, right? And the client is vulnerable, is fearful, and doesn't know how to show up after this, because the client has realized that, oh my God, this is false ego, that this drama was my own thoughts. This drama is something that I chose to put in that particular situation, and I can now choose otherwise. So when a client goes vulnerable, so how do we as coaches then show up? Will that be considered as as a little bit of counseling, or how do we show up as coaches and hold that space for them to, because that's a very beautiful thin line where they are moving from transactional to going deeper and becoming transformational. So I just wanted to also kind of question this group here, because we're kind of reading and absorbing and using it for ourselves as well.
I would acknowledge them. And I'll ask them to acknowledge themselves and be kind to themselves.
Mm.
And just acknowledge it. And because this is the first time they are entering into that, and be empathetic to self.
Because I think I think at this point now they also tend to go a little past, where they are letting loose of their victimization, that they have experienced. So how to ensure that the needle is towards transformational only, You were saying something, Shivani.
No, I saw Anita's finger go up, so I was just asking
Oh,
if she had
yeah, please.
something to add.
You're on mute, Anita.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes.
I want to actually share about the book, then probably we can take the question on a little more if
Yeah,
it's okay.
sure. Yeah, please.
So like
Because this is
Shivani
also part
shared,
of the book, so
yes, of course, definitely. So like Shivani shared, when I was undergoing my training, it was always said that coach the person, not the situation. So the minute I picked up this book, that was uppermost in my mind. And a little bit of it was kind of answered with the caterpillar,
yeah,
the
I love
how
it.
the metamorphosis that happened. And also it was always like the ways explain the ego, the ego concept. So that made me reflect. And the minute like I read, initially we were reading very fast because 1 month may, we had to finish it. But then I said, hold on. I was so happy when they decided first 3 chapters, because then you could reread and reread and think about it. So while I was reading about, the levels of consciousness, that how you shift with this book, I felt it's very important for me to take this journey in the shift in my own being, so that I could become more authentic when I am with the client. So that was uppermost on my mind. So the caterpillar was very interesting. And then the concept of the ego, how when you apply it to yourself, and there's the 3 questions which I have been trying to do with myself in all situations, which was the drama and the situation, and particularly the choice. But he says, even when you come to the level of choice, till you are able to embody the transformation, that took a long while to sink. So initially it was very easy, situation, drama, this. But then when I reread it and embodying it, and I sat down with myself and I thought about it and went over it, then I realized how deep even embodying is and how difficult it is. And then he
Mm.
says you have to make a shift in the mind and the body. So even, then it came to my mind, how am I coming forth, the way I'm looking? Am I smiling? Am I, so the body and the mind became one in the transformational process. So these were my, true, and then I love the questions, even in opportunity says, what's the gift or message here? What's the opportunity here? So what is it I want to transform? And then, you get into the trap is, what is my true self? That also get influenced by your ego concept if you're not, trying to keep it away. So for me, it's still a lot of learning, even in the first 3 chapters, and also a lot of self reflection within my own life. How is it I would like to go forward? What is my true self? So I'm still grappling with those questions. Maybe after this discussion, we will be able to, so these were the key learnings from the book, I felt.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I think you're right. Coaching the person, not the problem or the situation, was something I think we all heard. But what does it mean was not something a lot of training addressed. Is the sense I usually get when I work with peer coaches. That's a question I get asked a lot. So I've done my coach training from an ontological perspective, and I get asked this question a lot. How do you know it's who? I'm like, it's not an understanding based thing. It's just something you get, and that's what you're talking about, the embodiment. You just get it. You can't explain how. Like, for example, balance. You're sitting on the cycle and you're balancing. You can't really explain balance from a physics equation point of view, but you've just gotten it. So that's beautiful. Thank you. So since we've also transitioned into bringing this, we've all read the book, we've shared a little bit. We could also talk about any questions and situations of how to use this in a coaching conversation. One such example, I think, that Vanita brought in, we could discuss that and add to that, and maybe also learn how do we really take this forward? What do we do with this information or knowledge or experience that we've had reading the
Yeah, I
first
think that'll be
chapters?
wonderful. I think that'll be wonderful because if we are able to apply, we will then be able to retain this information. But otherwise, if we are consciously just applying it on ourselves, it will certainly bring a pause in our life. It will bring a little bit of silence in our life, and little wisdom as well. But I don't know how long we'll be able to retain it. So if we keep using the information, it'll be good. Yeah, we should think of it. Maybe create a group only to do deep coaching.
We can also pick up some learnings from each other here and,
Yeah,
practice
yeah.
them in the upcoming sessions that we all have. How do you use this? So, Vanita asked a question before Anita had shared. Does anybody have any inputs for that?
Jess has also raised her hand.
Okay, sure. Just you want to share? You're on mute.
Hi. Hi. Not a question, but just my experience of how I went through this book.
Okay.
Again, what everyone has already shared. I think for me, this book was a little daunting. It was a heavy text. In comparison to what I generally like to read, this felt like the miscellaneous exercise of the NCERT books, which are a bit complicated, a bit out of the syllabus, but you are yet supposed to do it. I think I was taking it too seriously and not getting deep into it. That was the first mistake I was doing in my first read. But then I came across this jewel, and I think on page 20, that's when my experience of the entire book changed. When it says, and I think it's going to be my favorite quote for some time now. It says, being is paramount to doing, and doing flows from being. Because I think when I read this, and of course the chapter and the pages that follow, which describe that how difficult is the period of transformation, how does one feel when they are in the moment of metamorphosis per se. And I think that was the time when I was able to relate to what has happened in my life, which led me into coaching. So I think it then began, I think that's when for me the layers of the onion started to fell apart. And actually, I began enjoying this book only after this happened. So now I'm enjoying it. That's all I want to mention. Thanks.
Beautiful. We're glad you're enjoying it.
Shivani, can I go ahead and share?
Yes, please.
But the first thing I liked about the book was the way he's explained many of the things that are going to be, right, are going to happen. I mean, like for example, self-concept, the difference between transactional and transformational coaching. And he says transactional coaching is where no matter what you do at the end of the coaching, you still are at the same existing way of life. But transformation coaching is about shifting in being or an expanded way of life. Yes, and someone was saying the why, right? Why, what drives you to do what you do? Under that, which is, I'm guessing for a lot of people, it's like your master chip or your, that operating system. If it doesn't work, you have no idea what to do. So you're very scared of going in. So he had used these words to say, the courage to willingly face your shadowy fears. There is light and there is shadow. And that's how you transform from who you are, or you get separated from the ego. And it's not just awakening is not an event, it's a process. And just happens at this one. Then there's one thing that, so I read the book that he talks about Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. He says this thing. Ego is where all of us say we are all separated, but the truth is that we are all one. And I've also taken ontological. I'm not sure if you've taken it from Coach Arya, but yeah. So
yes.
Yeah. Okay, fine. So yeah, that was my PCC. I think a small observation, that I think we all went through a transformational process. We picked up the book at a very transactional, and in 1 month we'll finish it and all that. But I think all of us, what I'm observing is, somewhere it is small things have started hitting us.
Yeah. And I think Deepti's correlation between the New Earth that she was talking about is also very true. That's another beautiful book to, take us deeper into our own layers. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you, Disha, sharing, Deepti. Should we transition into talking about, so those of you who are not on camera, I can't see you. If you have, you could react, you could share on chat, or come on the call and share. So while you're doing that, I'd invite all of us to maybe now think about how you have used what you have learned here. Have you thought about using it? Any thoughts around that? Any experiences? Any questions? We can, brainstorm and ask each other, learn from us, from different perspectives that are present here, to take our coaching to a deeper level. Yes, Deepti.
Yes. So, so the thing is,
Just a minute. Okay, so your voice is breaking. It keeps fading in and out, and I don't know if it's just for me or everybody else.
Yeah,
For us as well.
Okay.
you're muted now.
No, we can't hear you at all now.
okay, then you guys can go ahead.
Now we can hear you. Go ahead.
I always have an issue with my audio. Anyway, so I guess I'm one of those people. When I go for peer coaching, I normally take lead in the coaching space as a client, and I normally try and go into this why. Like, what is it that I want to change, and why does it? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And that kind of gives me, like, when I understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, then I don't have an action. There's no action at the end of the session, but it gets integrated and it just happens outside the session, the change in behavior or the way I do things. So even during the sessions that I take, we normally try and go into the why. Sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not, but depending on how comfortable the client is. So the thing is, what I'm trying to say is that operating system that he's talking about, the self-concept, right? Once you start questioning those, it becomes easier. So a peer coach that I know told me this, saying, I think Gabor-Mate, or Gabor-Mate, whatever his name is, right? He has this concept about attachment and authenticity. And then when we are for survival, we do a lot of things that kind of makes us not authentic. And then we don't question that. And that's what we are right now. And when we are in the coaching space, we start questioning those. All the things that we have been learned to do, which is not ourselves. And that's the layers which come out.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So what I summarized from what you said was questioning the why, taking them one level deeper into their process can help uncover and take the person deeper. I mean, it's something that I the concepts that we learn in these books and other coaching tools, they work very differently with clients versus how they work with peer coaches. Has that been your experience? So I feel that these processes I often need to adapt it slightly differently to my clients than how I could use it as is with peer coaches. Like some of the questions here, you could use it as is with peer coaches and they would work wonderfully, but they wouldn't work at all in with a client because of the language that we're using. So the language needs to be adapted, and sometimes that makes the question a little bit more wordy and long. Have you all experienced that? And what do you do about that? Like, what's your process of adapting these tools to clients?
There are certain simple question but very powerful question that sometimes the client is not ready for. like, who are you, kind of thing. It's such a simple question. But when the client is not ready, it is very, very difficult. So I think we also use it to be able to get to that question. You may want to sort of contextualize getting the client a little bit ready before you can go there.
So has somebody used the drama, situation, choice, and opportunity in a coaching conversation? How has that? No? Okay.
The way I see it, drama is nothing but your brown water flowing. Once that is over, normally the situation comes up, and that's where your transactional coaching happens if it stops there. And if we take it forward, it becomes your choice and opportunity and choice.
Absolutely. So I see it as, oh yeah, go ahead, Anita.
Sorry, I think it was used on me, and I don't know whether she's part of the book read group or not. She's a coach from Spain. And she, I wanted to keep it very periphery, but she went on digging, and I could see that first she did the clearance, cleansing and everything, and then she moved on to looking at it as an opportunity. And I think within 30 minutes, the session was done and it was really good. But yeah, that willingness to be open and discuss and, at that moment, going deep is a choice of the client. So I was willing. So it was happening.
The drama and the situation are still in the realm of the surface level, like iceberg, no, it's above the water. The choice and opportunity is below the water, in the iceberg. So yes, the willingness is definitely required, but we can also ease them in to thread the water a little bit and see if there is something they can get out of it. So Vanita, earlier in the conversation, you had a question around vulnerability of the client and how do you really acknowledge them? Was that your question?
So let's say, there is this coach who was asking me, and I at that moment I have chosen to take it forward, or rather the coach has also nudged me to take it forward. But what if I choose to do otherwise? And I go back and, struggle and don't come out of it. And, I am vulnerable. But how, at that time, how does the coach hold space? I mean, being present, all that's fantastic. Because see, we are talking about real-time clients. We are not talking about peer coaching. Peer coaching, all of us are now attuned. The moment, how do you want to show up? And we'll start rattling on. We are so attuned with so many hours behind us. So, but real-time clients, it's a different ballgame.
So I think if I observe my actual clients going in circles and not being able to see the things that are happening, I invite them to look at it from a different perspective, while also acknowledging that the work that they're putting in and calling it out that, I feel like we've been going back and forth in circles for the last 10 minutes. What do you think about that? Or what do you feel about that? I think as coaches, if we are sensing it, we put it out into the space, and sometimes they might not realize it. That's also a realization. So it's like that sharing an observation and allowing them to respond to it any way they want could be an approach, and seeing how they respond to it or what would they want to do. Yeah.
That is great. And another toolkit I'll use is just that I put it out to them and said, we've been going through it in a loop. Can I stop for a while can I stop the session for a bit? And can we just do a little bit of deep breathing, or just bring them back into a mindfulness exercise? And
I'm a little
because they are
fearful.
so
Will
heavy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, please go ahead.
So
No,
when,
sorry. Go ahead.
so when I see that they are getting into that loop and they're going into deep into that abyss kind of thing, and I can see the heaviness in them. So I'll just share my observation, and I invite them, would it be okay for us to stop here for a bit and just do a little bit of mindfulness exercise? And once they, so how are you feeling now? And they feel that a bit lighter, they say, okay, then we continue from there. And
Yeah.
most of the time, it takes them out of that overthinking, and they are able to come back.
I also realized that this may not happen in one session. It may take multiple sessions because, getting over your delusions, getting over those myths, and getting over those areas which are constrained within you and which have been with you for many years now. This is what your identity is. This is what you are. That's what your ego is also talking. So it may not get done with in one session. It may take 2-3 sessions.
Yeah,
And
and
I'm just fearful that they should not get into any form of depression or, some weird situation. Just that.
There is, one of the ways that it may work, may not work is, if you kind of ask them to visualize it, or if you have to kind of describe this, go into the metaphor world, right? Either it will come as a picture or as words. Once it becomes a metaphor, it becomes easier for you to ask a lot of questions. That's
I
what
like the picture part. I like the drawing picture part. Yeah. If
but
somebody is visual, it'd be
yes,
great.
that's all. So that is one. If that doesn't work, we can always ask, what are you feeling, and go into sensations. Where are you feeling it? How does it feel like? And then kind of, what's the message there, kind of a thing. So we can do it different ways. If this doesn't work, then this. If this doesn't work, then this.
Yeah, true. Great.
Beautiful. So did you get some approaches that you could use, Vanita?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
This is only thought. Nothing has happened. It's just that, it's good to kind of churn it around with this group,
Anybody else has any such situations where you think this can be used? You'd like to use it, or you want to talk about how we can use a certain concept that we read in this book in a coaching conversation? We could co-create a process and try it out. Does anything stand out for anyone? Dipali, you haven't shared something?
No, I'm just listening today. I have a little bit of a I'll speak the next class. Yeah.
Okay.
Next class, I'm saying next meeting.
Okay.
But I do like the idea of maybe picking something and seeing how we can use it, or if we have used it, to just talk about that from the first 3 chapters. That's a great idea. Kind of pull the thread on.
Any question that comes up to any of you? If not, then I will. Yes, okay, I see some energy.
Have you all answered who am I?
Yeah, that was the first session in my coach training. Who am I?
Yeah,
Who
I
are
remember.
we? That's the second one.
Have
Was
you
who are
answered
we?
while reading this book?
Uh,
For
Yes.
me, the answer to that when I first started learning coaching is so different from the answer I get when, as I go deeper and deeper into coaching. And the more I coach, the more I learn about who I am, and it's that's why I love that the code of transformation. We are stripping away, and who we are is forever moving. As you are more aware of certain things, you shift. And I think that's the beauty about coaching, isn't it? To be able to shift and be comfortable with the shift.
I think my lesson that I have learned about who am I is that, just to be in acceptance. Whatever I am, accept, and then look at, start the process work. Look at your triggers, look at your delusions, and then one by one, start peeling it off. Because we are all at a stage. Let me speak for myself. I'm at a stage where I'm still Vanita Khattar. Oh, but that's not who I am. So, yeah, still peeling off, I would say.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Question. As
So
we
for me,
live in our as we transform, do you feel that your values still stay the same?
Sorry, I
While you-
didn't hear the question.
As we transform, as we understood, our who we are, as we shift, do you find that your value still stay the same, or does it change?
No, it will change, yeah. At least, yeah. And it'll be much more than perception. Much more than perception. Certainly we would have shifted certain dimension.
I think for me, when I ask this question, who am I? And I correlate because a lot of shifting happens because even the past events, when you bring them up in your life again, you look at them with a different perspective than what you had looked at them, earlier. So this question is, I think, very, very deep. Who am I? I think it's a question we have to live with till the last day. Every day we'll discover something new. So for me, the past started to change a lot, and that then I realized that this is how my ego was colored by this kind of, thinking that what people thought of me, how I wanted to come across to them. A lot of your childhood, your survival mechanisms, you start to question that this is what it is. So for me, it was who am I think is a question which stays, I think, and will stay forever.
Beautiful. It's ever evolving. We are changing every single experience, and the way we are looking at everything is also shifting. You spoke about how past is changing. We think past doesn't change, but the way we are looking at it, maybe a new lens, maybe a new opportunity, maybe a new choice that we can make. Beautiful. So as we transition into the last 8 minutes of this conversation, how would you all like to close this?
I think this was wonderful. Now I feel I want to go back to 4th, 5th, and 6th chapter again, read, and come here with more substance. I have made my notes, but I feel they were not enough. So it can't be just the writer's, author's notes. It has to be my reflections as well. Like how Shivani said, what are your reflections? So I think when I come back next year, I will come with my reflections. Then the shift will happen, I feel.
I just wish that I have the physical book because I can't find the physical book, and I'm reading it on
Kindle.
and it's not the same.
Same here.
It's a hefty book. Nice.
Where did
I
you
think I'll
get
buy it
that?
now.
Amazon?
Oh, to send from Amazon to I can only get it Amazon US, and to send that from US to here, the postage costs more than the book.
Oh, it's not there anymore? Okay, maybe the last few copies. Okay, what about others? How would you like to close this space? So Vanita is closing with something that she's taking away, that she'd work on making better notes, writing her own reflections, reading the book a little more deeply, and then coming back to have a discussion which is filled with substance. What's everybody else doing or wanting to take away from this conversation?
I echo what Vanita said, and especially when Maimoon was talking, I was like, I have to go back to the highlights that I've made on the Kindle and revisit them, because so many things of what she said have, it's come back again. So definitely want to maybe go back, look at my highlights, and then proceed, take it to the next couple of chapters.
I think I want to work on how to use this in coaching conversations and actually try to do that. So I would, in fact, revisit the first 3 chapters and try these out and make notes on how it worked. Because a lot of times, my clients surprise me when I use tools with them. They come up with such beautiful, newer ways of interpreting it that I'm like, wow, this is one method. You can just keep using the same thing. You don't need new ones. So I'd like to make notes on that. That's something maybe I will try this upcoming month while reading the next few chapters.
If anybody found a hard copy, can they please let me know? I would love to have a hard copy of this book.
And we courier it to Malaysia, right?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
So someone told me that they found it in their library as well. So maybe it's worth a chance to check your local library.
Haven't been to a library for ages.
Ages.
Maybe this is the sign. Okay, we have a couple more minutes. Anybody has any closing thoughts? How are we closing this space? Sandeep, I saw you unmute. Do you want to share something?
I wanted to tell Maimoon that we have a coach who travels from Bangalore to Malaysia often. I'll send you her name, and then maybe she can, if you can both connect, and then she might be able to get you the hard copy. I bought a hard copy myself, I bought a Kindle, I bought a hard copy. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to say. So I think it is unfair for me to say anything at this moment because I joined very late. But yeah, but I have been reading this book chapters again and again, and especially I think what you all have been saying, read it again and again and see how you can use it in our coaching engagement. I don't want to add to what might have already been said, but I at least some of those things were very deeply. I mean, it's a very great book for sure, but to add to something that has been discussed is unfair.
Sure, thank you very much. Anyone else? Any final thoughts? We have 3 more minutes to go. We could close early. Yeah.
I think this is a book one can revisit again and again and again. It's like got so much. Every time you read it, there's something more. So after this discussion we've had, I think the next 3 chapters, I'll approach them with a more deeper, kind of endeavor to understand it even more deeply and absorb it so that it becomes not only in my coaching sessions, but I think even in my dealings with everybody else around. Because we are silently coaches even if we are not in the coaching space. I think after coaching session one, it becomes a part of one's life that you're always looking at every dialogue you're having from the coaching perspective. So I think one can apply it to all areas. And that's what I'm going to do. So it becomes more a part of whom I want to be.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yes, Jayanti, you have something you want to share, ask?
Just bear with my voice. I have a bad throat. So, a wonderful session. I'm coming for the first time, and I believe, like, thank you so much, Shivani and Dipali, for conducting this session. I really enjoyed your wonderful conversation. Though I am not aware of this book because I haven't read it yet, I was not able to get this book because it's not available anymore on Amazon. But I would love to hear if anybody can help me to get this hard copy because I prefer those pages and book fragrance and all. I want to, that's I'm a hardcore hard copy person. So yeah, it would be great if anybody can help me out to get this book so that I can just read it. And after hearing your reflection, it's amazing. And I'm even more curious to know more about this book. So thank you so much for conducting this session.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much. Jayanti, you'd be surprised how much of the book we've already gone through as part of our sessions. It was like a refresher, of the sessions we had 2 years ago.
Wow. Yes. Yeah. But yes,
So,
please let me know about that for sure.
yeah, why don't you post on the group? Maybe some of us, somebody can help because we are very few on the call compared to the group.
Yeah, because I guess next week you guys will be on 4th, 5th, and 6th chapter. And yeah, so I have to read quite quickly.
Yeah. No worries. Not a competition. You can read at your own pace, right? I think we started off with the whole book and came down to 3, and it's okay if we're quality over quantity any day. So everybody's asking, it's 8, but I just want to address one thing. Everyone's asking what chapters to read next time, and there's a suggestion of reading 3 chapters. I want to ask, do we want to read the 7th chapter as well? That will conclude the part 1 of the book. Do you all feel you could do 4 chapters for the next month? Or do you want to keep it to 3? That's also fine.
So I think 4, 5, 6 are very heavy when compared to 1, 2, and 3. So I think it's better to keep it 4, 5, 6.
3? Okay, sure. Is that the general consensus? Does everybody feel similarly or differently? Yes, no, thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay. I see thumbs up. Thank you so much. So we'll put the update on the group as well. Thank you so much for showing up.
I'm sorry, I missed the last part. So what are we doing next?
4, 5, 6.
4, 5, 6. Okay, perfect.
Okay.
And we are taking some time to get back.
1 month.
When are we planning?
1 month.
1 month.
Yeah,
Maybe
and
first.
Yeah, and what we were also talking about was possibly having the same, either the second Friday of every month, so that all of us know beforehand and we kind of block our calendars and we don't need to keep on doing polls and people coming, showing up, right? So today is the 9th, right? The second Saturday of March is the 8th. So if everyone is good with 8th.
Saturday or Friday?
Friday. I'm sorry, Friday.
7.
That's 7th. So if
Yeah.
everyone is good with that, then we can kind of put that also into the group.
So
yeah?
we in this 1 month we just finish 4, 5, and 6 and come, right?
Yeah.
All right, perfect.
Okay, thank you so much,
Okay,
everyone, for
thank
showing
you,
up and
bye-bye.
sharing.
Thank you so much.
Happy
Thank you for
reading for the
coming.
next
Bye-bye.
month. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.
You can pause recording.